So I invite our speakers to focus on the first question, which is how to nicely deal with people who talk too long during a remote meeting, a bigger one, not one-on-one. And normally our body language help, but much less of it shows via camera. Who wants to start on this?
I may start. Okay. Okay, thank you. So I don't know if it's the best way, but some applications that you can use for online meeting have some things like emoticons. So you don't have to interrupt those person, but you can just click an icon like whatever you want, like to that person see this and maybe stop talking. I don't know. You can also do this. You know, there is like Elmo rule. You can still use it, but not by raising your hand, but just by react by this icon. I'm doing that and it works sometimes, but still.
Can you clarify this Elmo rule?
Enough, let's move on. This is like shortcut for this sentence. So if you want to like stop some topic or cut the discussion, you do the Elmo rule. So enough, let's move on.
I can add to just taking the whatever you have in normal meetings, which is a good old moderator. It has to be someone who has thick skin and is able to nicely interrupt the others. But if you have someone like that, then it can be either used usually like on normal meetings so that people are interrupted and then asked to cut their talk, but also because it's online, so that person can use another channel to give some sign to that person that he should be wrapping up. So that actually gives you a way to interact with those people nicely, so they can feel not so bashed during the meeting.
I would like to add that we like to use those two cards. These are a part of superpower cards from Reset Sutherland. And one is speed up, the second is slow down. So you can, when you can see each other, of course, you can use this. And the other tool is Cuckoo Timer. I will send a link to the Cuckoo Timer in the chat. And this is when we agreed that every participant have any time box, then there is a plugin in your web browser that will finish the time in everyone's window, and you can switch from one to the other. So we are using this Cuckoo as well. Thank you.
If I could add something to this, I would say that I assume you're a facilitator, right? So the more structure you give to the meeting, the less will be situations like someone is talking too long. So things that, for example, I mentioned to Eva are like parts of kind of bringing the structure to the meeting. So that's one thing. Also, I would say that providing a structure helps you in like the second part of the situation, which is people who are less talkative, don't talk at all, for example. And as for the body language, I would say it's hard to kind of listen to others' body language, but you can listen to your own body language. And if you kind of start feeling that it's kind of enough, then act accordingly, moving the meeting forward.
Yeah, maybe I can add if I, as a facilitator, I would probably try to could use this 1, 2, 4 all approach. So especially if you use Zoom, where you can divide in groups and breakout rooms, then you can give every participant a chance to talk together first, 2 and 2, and then maybe in bigger groups 4 and 4, and then share with everyone so that everyone gets a chance to talk.
Yeah, I believe that's a good point. There's a lot of liberating structures that you can use in order to engage more everyone and give room for everyone to speak up.
Awesome. Sounds great. I'm marking this question as answered, and we're having the next one. How to understand the group's energy level when running remote meetings?
Okay, I'll start. I think what is super crucial is having your video on. Obviously, if there are people with their cameras shut off, then it's really hard to understand what's going on. And so people usually think when they're not really familiar with remote work that if they're not talking, they can switch off their cameras because I don't know, maybe they don't want to look stupid just sitting there and not talking, or maybe they worried what's gonna be happening in the background. So these all things have to be just kind of taken care of by yourself. But it is crucial that you are visible during the meeting so that the others can understand how do you respond and what's basically the energy level of the meeting. And then also the smaller the meeting, the better, obviously, because you can have 15 people probably in a meeting room around the table and then somehow manage to understand what's going on. But if you have 15 cameras, most of software will not even allow you to see all of them at once. Zoom is one of the few that can actually have a gallery view for many users, but most of them will show you just 3 or 4 that have recently spoken, so you won't be able to see the rest of them. So just try to make them as small as possible.
You just said one very important thing, that usually you're not able to see a big group in one picture, right? So sometimes it's better not to catch the energy level, but to manage it. So start from icebreaker, do some breaks during the meeting if it's longer. In the middle of the meeting, do something to push up the level of the energy for the group, right?
I guess I have two points to add here. First one is use the old very easy way. Ask maybe a couple of times during the meeting on what's the level. Even like everyone answering on chat. And second is, I would say, I also seen another question like how to run a long workshop. And now the remote work is no matter how you think, it's different than like the sitting in the conference room. So for example, that means that you need to have shorter meetings, maybe more some asynchronous work before or after, and that way you'll be able to keep the energy higher having shorter meetings.
I would like to add that I observed that in the remote meetings, usually for me to have a pretty much enough energy means that 30% of the group is active. Usually I don't expect more because some people just like to listen and focus and then just add something at the very end or in the middle where asked. But I do not expect too much, and it's still good enough. So people are just different, and for some of them, it's not very comfortable to speak that much remotely. As if there are at least 2 or 3 people being engaged, it seems there is some energy in the room.
Okay, so how is the energy in our room? Anybody wants to add something to this? Okay.
By limbo state.
Limbo state. Okay, so I consider this question answered. Next question. How to encourage people, even those reluctant, to turn on cameras during the meetings? How to deal with excuses, etc.?
If I only knew. Just make them talk to the rest for 30 minutes if no one has the camera on, and they'll understand why is it so important that they're seen. I think that's other than that, you can try to persuade them, but the only time they won't do it unless they understand why is it so difficult for the rest. So by example.
I would like,
yes, please, Eva.
Thank you. I would like to add that it's really good to understand the reason, because I had a beautiful story that one of the teammates, a girl, she refused to turn on the camera. And I asked her after the meeting one by one, and I said, "What's the problem?" And she said, "I'm breastfeeding and I really want to be a part of this meeting. So sorry, but he's quiet, her son, when, he was eating." Okay, sure, no problem. So that was the case. So it could happen. It's good to understand and to clarify this when we agreed that she will let the people know that she needs be, in this private situation without the camera. But in the other situation, she will turn the camera on. Everybody will be okay with that. And I had another funny situation was when I was with the new team, with a new customer, fully remote meeting because of coronavirus, not because they wanted to. And I was trying, by example, encourage them to show a face and look at me. We can, communicate better. And they were like, okay, but let's wait for the manager. And they didn't said that it was a rule within the company that because of the problems with communication, they are not allowed to show their face. They were confused. So, that was really creepy, because when the manager appeared, I asked, what's the problem? And she said, because according to these problems with, internet, etc., we decided that we are not sharing faces. Okay, so during this meeting, can we make an exception? Yes, we can. Okay, so we turn the camera on. But sometimes it's good to ask. We used to not see each other on every meeting with this company, and I understand the reason, but once a week we can see each other. That's good. So different stories here.
I think I wouldn't worry too much about it, especially in these times. I think we also need to respect that people have different challenges at home. It could be with the kids, or as you say, it was a woman breastfeeding her son. So, we can of course be the examples ourselves, and if the majority then chooses to turn on the camera, I think it's great. But we can also try to, it could be, I often say, oh, it's so nice to see your different backgrounds and give a different aspect to our meetings, another life, or we could kind of try to point out to, oh, you have something in the background, and talk about that. And one time we did this, have the meeting in front of your fridge, show me your fridge, and these type of things where you have to be more engaged in the meeting. But in general, I wouldn't worry too much if I think I would just trust that if they don't want to show, there must be some reasons. But of course, if you have a very open and honest environment in your team, you could ask to, if there's a specific reason that person do not want to share the camera.
Mm-hmm. I have few experiences, because previously I worked with totally remote team, and there was no problem to turn on the camera during the meetings, and this was the rule, let's say. And now I'm working with the team, as Justin said, they are forced to work remotely, and it's not totally normal for them to turn on camera because they don't used to do that. What I'm doing is I'm turning my camera always on, so they just can see it's normal, even though my kids are running behind me. It's normal. Sometimes I even point my camera on my kids and saying during the meeting, "Hey, look, can you see this girl? this is funny. Like, and then you make smiling people on the people's faces. Moreover, what I've noticed recently, when we started virtual coffees, which was not normal when we were at the office, then people started to turn on the cameras, because it wasn't like the meeting, it was virtual coffee. Oh, Michał, you have the camera on. Maybe I should turn my camera on. Oh, I cannot because I have no makeup. Oh, do not worry about it. Yeah, so like get the people used to it and give them time to do not enforce that.
I would also say, because the question is how to encourage people, even those reluctant, to turn on the cameras. I mean, very much depends on what's your goal and what's the meeting type. Because if it's like very much task-oriented meeting, and we basically know each other, I'd say if team's preference is not to use cameras, fine. If it's more like a social meeting or well, kind of people connection is required, for example, retrospective, then I would say kind of having camera on is kind of something quite important. But in general, I mean, I would say if, let's say, the team is reluctant to switch on the cameras, but they basically feel good and they deliver value, I mean, why bother?
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on to the next question. How to take care of people who flourish when working with others, learning from others, gaining motivation from others, people who say remote work is not for me?
I like to work in pairs, remotely. Extreme consulting and slim writing, documenting, offering, etc. I like it. It's much better for me because I like to work with people. And we decided in my company, when we are walking around Poland with different consultants and people from back office, I really like this, focused work on the one artifact together. And it is better for me because I'm this kind of person. So I recommend this, the clear output, the clear time box, and work together in pairs. So any other group sufficient for the task.
Yeah, I think it's important to engage in bilateral ad hoc communication with such people, just to indeed try to call them sometimes. More maybe it'd be easier to start with one-on-one, especially with going on with people they used to hang on, rather than expect them to be very active during the team meetings, etc. This is probably maybe an easier start, so they're used to it.
I like to add something. I kind of don't understand the question, because I do not think that working remotely means you do not work with others. I think you still work with others, and if there's good practices and good tools, you'll still be able to do it quite efficiently and quite synchronously. I often hear that when before the coronavirus, I don't talk too much about remote work, or as much as I talk now, but very often people tell me that the remote work wouldn't be for them. I think that remote work can be for everyone if you have a good setup of whatever the work you have, and you do not have to be forcedly isolated with your kids on your back and with other members of your family yelling at each other in the background. Then it's quite nice to have to work from home, and then you just have to make an extra effort maybe to work efficiently with others, but it's still possible.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. Now, Remote team integration.
I think many of us know Team Canva. It's so easy to put Team Canva in virtual background and just work together on this. So I think any artifact, maybe not any, but a lot of artifacts we are using during on-site integration, we can move into virtual. We can use blocks, we can use discussions. We can discuss the things that are important, like agreements. You were talking about agreements, about boundaries, about successes and failures. Let's drink for it. Let's be sat together for a while and learn on our failures. So I would say that they are more or less the same. Maybe the preparation phase is for the moderator quite difficult sometimes. But just think, what would you do when there is no need to be remote? What would you like to achieve? What will be the outcome of the meeting? What's the reason to have this integration? Do you want simple chat or do you want any outcome of this meeting? And do it.
I think for both this question and the one before, also referring to one of the lightning talks, that there are a lot of activities you can basically mirror in the online setup as well. And I think we have all these times has shown that there are so many of the things you do at the office you can actually mirror even in an online setup, whether it's coffee talk or it's a Friday bar or afternoon beer or whatever. Lots of activities you can still do online. We sometimes do retrospective Kahoot quiz style and also try to do some personal stuff. So you still have this great team feeling even online. It's not the same, but there is many possibilities to mirror the same activities.
I can tell you something we did last Friday, because there's plenty of different businesses now going online. So you can take from that and support them as well, which is also good. But we contacted someone who did a pub quiz once for us in the pub, and they started to do it online. And we did it on Friday and it was quite fun. They arranged everything. We had different rooms for different teams that they could talk about the questions that they were asked, and then there was an online way of answering them. It was quite cool. So just look around what's going on right now.
One of my colleagues decided that we will have a remote offsite, kind of offsite next week. And he asked us to play something dangerous. I don't know, it's RPG game, something in virtual environment. And well, he prepared this because he was the master of this kind of game. So yeah, I can tell you in a week.
And also, it might be difficult to find enough time to maybe do some integration for the team working remotely. But you can always piggyback to existing meetings, like something that also Tomek mentioned during the company call. Like you can have like the fourth question on the daily stand-up, which is just anything of your invention, like favorite book. Favorite movie, or even some more deeper questions arise later, and you can let the team actually come up with those questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on to the next question. How to manage a team that was forced to Scrum by management, and how to encourage them when working remotely. Indian plus Polish folks.
Yes, thank you, Eva. Move on.
Plus one.
Doesn't matter. Isn't remote? Oh no. What does it mean? It's forced to Scrum.
So it sounds a bit like someone didn't really buy into the idea of working with Scrum. So maybe try to focus on the change story, the why, what is it we're trying to obtain here, and what is in it for you. And so sometimes I think we might force something, but we forget to explain the whole story behind it. So and that is very important also to tell when you are implementing something new, because otherwise people, they don't buy into it. They don't understand what's in it for them. So maybe try to find some visible benefits that you can focus on.
Yeah, that sounds like a
Sorry.
really painful thing and a huge challenge. I would like put a huge question mark on this encourage thing. So are you like do you actually believe in things that you're trying to encourage people into? I'm sure not an easy thing, but first make sure that you kind of encouraging people into something that you really believe in.
Okay. Thank you. This was the hard one. Now it's in Polish, but I will translate it. How to run a workshop remotely for bigger group, about 25 people, in which you want to have moments of parallel work in pod groups, in subgroups or separate rooms.
It's possible with Zoom. Just use Zoom.
Yeah, you can use either Zoom with the conference kind of version that you can have sub-rooms. Also, BlueJeans is another tool very similar to Zoom that allows you to do that. Or if you know how many subgroups you're gonna have, then I'd suggest to just pre-generate links for Google Meet, and then have them somewhere available so people know where to click to change their room.
I'd say it's gonna be hard to facilitate such a thing. So you'll need a really good structure. And the second stuff in kind of maybe switching a bit to like reality of remote work being a bit different than an office. If I were you, I would run 2 turns of this. First, let people work in subgroups, and then only have like one participant from the group join like the main meeting to avoid chaos.
Basically, maybe I can add, it's not that super difficult. The only thing that is very useful is to differentiate between facilitators and the secretary. So you have a person that is actually managing all the breakout rooms, sending links and taking care of all the technicalities. But with Zoom, it works pretty well. You just need to be clear that sometimes it will take more time to explain people the things, how it works, and that they will be brought back, etc.
Okay. How to increase dynamics of meetings from the perspective of a Scrum Master?
Yeah, how can you, Mateusz?
Yeah, I'm thinking about closing this down, this meeting. but let's have this last 1 or 2 questions.
Sorry, I needed to switch the network for a better one. I would provide this meeting incrementally. So maybe we, in short intervals, can provide something like a smaller product, increment of product, anything, and focus what have we done, what are we going to do today? Still, is it valuable? Can we want a short break or maybe divide into groups? So the 2 weeks ago, we had a workshop, not a big group of people, but about 20 people for 4 hours without a break. We decided that if you need a break, just go for it. Go take a break and discuss with the team how to organize, to provide the product at the end. And it worked well, but we checked every few minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, what's going on, what we delivered, what are we going to deliver. We had a virtual backlog in Trello. We were going through this backlog of every piece in the meeting. So I think like that, incrementally. How many more questions, Mateusz? To deliver?
One more. One more.
Okay, so to this one, maybe I can add something. A friend of mine I was working with across my previous company, Kuram, said something like, it's not about physical distance right now, but about social distance in these remote teams. So when we talk about this situation that we have remote teams, we usually were saying about the connections between people within the team, because right now everyone is separated and you have to feel the closeness of the rest of the group. So every time that you can, try to do something extra to open the group and work on them as a team, because it's not like you can have one great meeting because you've planned it perfectly. It's about the group. So you really have to focus on the group, on the people in this case, because otherwise, once you will win and the meeting will be great, and another time it will be like suck.
Yes, totally agree, Michał, that we need to focus on the group. We even want to make them a team. And if we want a team, then we need a goal for them. Because in my understanding, when you move a group of people into a team stance, it's like they have a same goal and they fail together or they succeed together. There is no other possibility. They fail or succeed together. So that's why I'm talking about this incrementally delivering the value. We all know what is it and we focus on it. And all of the things you guys are talking about, this collaboration and social connecting, they are very important things. And we are starting with meeting with asking each other what happened, how do you feel today, or something like this, or short exercise to be right here and there together. But the most difficult for me right now, here in this situation, in online job, in remote times, is losing being a team focused on one thing and then on the other. It's like we are starting to be as silos, and that's the disaster. So both things are important, and we need to focus on both of them.
I'd say most meetings start being unproductive very fast and don't bring real value. So appreciate remote work, which makes it even more visible.
Okay. After this one, I think we could mark this done. And let's make it the last question. Tips for remote onboarding of new people. You mentioned, Paweł mentioned it in his talk, that this is very important, but how to do it right?
Maybe I can start. I did a remote onboarding workshop for a new team member last week. We always try to make it a very personal onboarding plan, so it's personal for this specific person in a specific team. And this time, of course, it requires a lot more of every team member. So we try to make a personal plan that we and just as long with we use version 1 as our system, where we also add all the onboarding activities for that person, so we can all of us pull one of these activities and have the status at stand-ups, and then we try to do a mix of so the new person works with people and he has some test cases he work on his own, and also with some books and then reading. So there's a mix of everything, because maybe it's not expected he can sit 8 hours from morning to the evening, but so it's a mix of different activities, and then each of us has the responsibility to check in how it's going. So it's, I would say it's not that different, but it just requires a bit more effort to check up on that person. And luckily, we then have the daily stand-ups to do that, for example.
In my case, what worked as pretty much as a solution was a shepherd that was taking care of a new onboarded person, preferably not a manager, but a peer from the team who just work closely with this person. Someone who this new person can always ask, not actually asking a public question, but private question. And, someone who will just ask some questions to the new person, how the things are going, explain some things. So just working for a new onboarded person, especially remotely, working with one person as a new peer, it's way easier to start than with a whole team and all the public Slacks, etc. sometimes.
Right, I'd like to add something to that. I think it's very important to think about the onboarding process as something that doesn't necessarily start when the people are joining, but it has to start a little bit before that. Because I'm pretty sure from remote or not remote work, you all had experiences when you started a new thing and you felt totally lost in your first day at work. And on a remote job, it's gonna be multiplied by 1,000, especially if someone has been working in an office for their whole life and now it's the first time from home and they're sitting in their room. They don't feel like being at work, and plus they're left alone to do something with them. So think about what should be done before they join. We did the handbook. Probably it can be different things in different environments. A corporate buddy or a shepherd, as Tomek said, is a very good idea. So someone who will make sure that everything from the onboarding side has been done. Plus, really think about all the points that have to be fulfilled, let's say, for a person, and then write them down somewhere so you never forget about anything. And that person who is a corporate buddy will make sure that everything has been done for a person. And if you are working in a software house, so people are not necessarily going to be hired for a project that your company is doing, like a startup, but there are many projects and they can join different things. Make sure the person feels that they know what they're going to be doing at your company, even though they might be on a bench for a week or 2 or 3, but depending on your situation of your company, but they have to feel that there's something waiting for them and they not a left alone person somewhere on the bench. Okay, that's it.
Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you for our speakers and panelists. Thank you for our for the guests.